The air in the cinema lobby, usually thick with the sweet, comforting scent of popcorn and anticipation, felt heavy, suffocating, reeking of betrayal and lies. My heart was a frantic hummingbird in my chest, beating so hard I thought it might burst. Just moments ago, I was a woman on the brink of what I thought was true happiness, and now I was a ghost haunting a stranger's celebration. And there they were. Mark, the man I had given 10 years of my life to, on one knee, a dazzling ring glinting under the harsh lobby lights, proposing to a woman who wasn't me. His best friend Scott, the very same person who had calmly told me to back off just days before, was cheering them on, his voice a grotesque echo of celebration. My legs, propelled by a force I didn't recognize, carried me through the stunned crowd. The woman in his arms, I knew her. Tiffany, his ex-girlfriend from college. Those fleeting encounters I dismissed as innocent, as just old friends catching up now, burned like acid in my memory, twisting every past moment into a painful lie. The world constricted, leaving only the sight of their entwined figures, the sickening glint of the ring. A choked scream tore through me, a sound that seemed to rip from the deepest part of my soul, and then without thought, my hand connected with his face in a sharp, resounding slap that echoed through the sudden silence of the lobby. "How could you, Mark?" My voice, ragged and raw, was barely a whisper, vibrating with years of repressed pain and sacrifice, of every silent struggle and every dream I'd built around him. After everything, after 10 years, he stumbled back, holding his reddening cheek, his eyes wide with a fleeting surprise that quickly hardened into cold anger. He pulled Tiffany protectively behind him, shielding her as if I were the threat, the aggressor, the crazy ex-girlfriend. "She's pregnant, Elena," he stated, his voice flat, devoid of emotion, a stark contrast to the passionate declarations he'd once whispered to me. "I'm doing the right thing. We've been seeing each other recently." Pregnant. The word hung in the air, a cruel, mocking epitaph to my decade of devotion. My mind reeled, trying to grasp the enormity of the lie, the depth of his calculated deception. All those years, every single sacrifice, every late night, every penny, all of it for this. For him to discard me like a used tissue, to stand there and lie to my face. I wanted to howl, to rage, to tear them both apart, to expose him for the monster he was. But before I could even formulate another question, before another word could tear from my throat, he pointed at me, his voice sharp and dismissive, laced with a chilling authority. "Security! Get this customer out of here! She's causing a disturbance!" The guards, recognizing him as management, moved in their faces, impassive, their eyes already scanning for ways to remove me. I was helpless, caught in their unyielding grip, dragged away, my protests dissolving into choked sobs, unheard amidst the murmuring, bewildered crowd. The last thing I saw was Mark's face, a flicker of something in his eyes, triumph, relief, but it was quickly masked by indifference, by that familiar mask of control he always wore. My humiliation was absolute, public, and utterly crushing. I felt utterly spent, hollowed out, left to confront the ruins of a life I had so painstakingly built for someone else, now shattered into a million irreparable pieces. The weight of my exhaustion, the cumulative burden of 10 years of struggle, crashed down on me. I could still smell the sweet, buttery popcorn, and it made me want to gag. For the last 2 months, ever since that day, I've been living in a haze of disbelief and a gnawing emptiness. Every moment feels heavy, tainted by the betrayal. It's hard to even remember a time before him, before the constant hum of effort, the relentless grind of 2 jobs. I was 30 when Mark and I started our life together, a young woman with a heart as vast as the sky, filled with an almost naive optimism. He was 32, an orphan with no family, no real anchor in the world. He was brilliant, no doubt, sharp, quick-witted, and incredibly ambitious. But he also carried a profound sense of pride, an almost fragile ego that masked a deep insecurity. He needed to be seen as strong, as self-made, as invincible. I saw his potential, his raw talent, and a fierce, almost maternal instinct took hold. I truly believed in him. I pictured a future where we built something incredible together, a life rich with shared dreams and accomplishments. I wanted to be the rock he needed, the soft place for him to land when the world got too hard. To make that vision a reality, I worked 2 jobs, day in and day out. During the day, I was at a bustling aesthetic clinic where I helped women feel beautiful, pampered, and renewed. I'd spend hours on my feet perfecting nail art or giving rejuvenating facials, absorbing the mundane gossip of suburban lives. The scent of acetone and floral lotions became as familiar as my own breath, and then at night, I'd rush to our local cinema, a place that ironically felt like a second home. I was surrounded by stories of love and triumph of heroes and heroines finding their way on the big screen while I worked the concession stand. The rhythmic pop, pop, pop of the popcorn machine was a constant companion, the sweet buttery aroma clinging to my hair and clothes. Every cent I earned, every ounce of my energy, every single late night went into putting Mark through university. He was studying business, dreaming of a corporate climb, while I was simply dreaming of us, of a life where we were finally secure and happy. After he graduated, those initial months were tough. He struggled to find his footing. The pressure of a prestigious degree weighing heavily, I continued to support him paying rent, buying groceries, covering his expenses as he navigated the treacherous waters of a new graduate's job hunt. He had this intense pride, you see. He never ever wanted to appear weak or dependent, and so I made sure he never had to. I shielded him from the financial realities, taking on the entire burden myself, believing it was an investment in our future, our family. The buttery aroma of popcorn wasn't just a smell. It was the essence of our joint sacrifice, our shared dream, a dream I nurtured with every fiber of my being. Then came the good news, or what I truly believed was good news at the time. Mark landed a high-paying job, a real breakthrough, at a rapidly growing tech firm. He was an assistant director, a significant step up, and the salary was phenomenal. My heart soared with pride, a pure, uncomplicated joy. This was it, I thought. All those years, all that hard work, every ounce of my sacrifice, it was finally going to pay off. We'd built this future together, brick by painstaking brick. I pictured our lives finally stable, maybe even a small house with a garden. Kids, perhaps. The simple, beautiful things I had always longed for. One evening, I remember a mundane moment, a fleeting glance at his phone while he was distracted scrolling through something. My eyes caught a glimpse of his search history, romantic proposal spots. My breath hitched. My heart pounded with anticipation. And then my heart almost leapt out of my chest when I saw it. My movie theater was among the top results. The very place where I spent so many hours, the place where countless couples had started their happily ever afters, where love stories unfolded on the big screen and in the dim light of the aisles. A wave of giddy excitement washed over me. The next day, I floated through my shifts at both jobs, a secret joyous smile playing on my lips. I was going to be the leading lady in my own romantic epic. I imagined the proposal, the tears, the future, the sweet relief of finally being seen, appreciated, and cherished for all I had done. I allowed myself to dream fully and completely of a life of peace and shared success. But then the world began to fracture subtly at first, like a tiny crack in a perfectly smooth pane of glass. It started with a phone call, then an ex-post. During my lunch break at the clinic, my dear friend Lena, her brow furrowed in disbelief, thrust her phone into my hand. It was an ex-post from midnight on Reddit, an account that shared anonymous confessions and asked for advice. "You have to see this, Elena," she exclaimed, her voice vibrating with indignation, a raw anger I rarely heard from her. It was from a 30-year-old man eerily Mark's age, seeking advice on how to break up with his girlfriend of 10 years. He described her as nauseatingly smelling of buttered popcorn, unattractive, and no longer worthy of his new position as an assistant director. He was desperate for a smooth exit, especially since she had supported him for so many years. The comments section was a firestorm of outrage and disgust, people tearing into him, calling him a leech, a monster, utterly condemning his selfishness. But one particular comment, chillingly cold and calculating, suggesting he fake a terminal illness to break up amicably, had been liked by the anonymous poster. My stomach lurched a cold premonition, but I remember trying to shake it off, dismissing it with a casual shrug. "Lena, come on," I said, forcing a laugh, trying to sound nonchalant. "It's probably just clickbait, some desperate attempt by midnight on Reddit to generate engagement. You know how these anonymous forums are trying to stir up drama." Oh, the naivete. The convenient blindness of a heart that desperately wanted to believe in the best, even when the worst, was staring it in the face. Later that same afternoon, just hours after seeing that post, my phone rang. It was the hospital. The results of our routine checkups were in. My world tilted on its axis when they told me. Mark, they said, couldn't have children. The cause was unclear, suspected cancer or a genetic condition, and the treatment, if we pursued it, would be a staggering $100,000. I was completely blindsided, the words echoing in my ears like a death knell. My heart ached for him, knowing his immense pride, his deep-seated need for control and perfection, his almost pathological fear of weakness. The idea of him with his towering ego confronting something like infertility would be devastating. It would shatter him. He wasn't the type to accept charity or weakness. He would view it as a failure, a fundamental flaw in his perfect image. How could I tell him this? How could I explain a diagnosis that would chip away at his very identity? I began frantically calculating, trying to figure out how to raise the money, how to break the news to him gently, how to cushion the blow, how to reassure him that even without children, our life together would still be enough. My hands trembled as I considered how to approach such a conversation without completely demolishing his carefully constructed self-image. The next few days were a blur of frantic worry and secret planning. I barely slept, consumed by the thought of his diagnosis, and even more by the terrifying prospect of revealing the truth. I looked at him, at his confident stride, his booming laugh, and imagined his face crumpling, his proud shoulders slumping if he knew. The thought alone was unbearable. I researched clinics, looked into second jobs, calculated savings, all in a desperate attempt to find a path forward, a way to protect him from this crushing news. When I finally dragged myself home late one evening, exhausted to my bones, the silence hit me first. An unnatural, suffocating silence. He wasn't there. His clothes, his books, everything, meticulously packed, meticulously removed. On the kitchen counter, a single folded letter. My hands trembled as I opened it. A tearful confession he was dying, had been diagnosed with cancer, and couldn't bear to put me through it. He had left to spare me the pain, to spare me the anguish of watching him fade away. My blood ran cold. The hospital hadn't even given him the results yet. How could he possibly know? How could he have known about a diagnosis I had only just received myself? The pieces of the puzzle began to click horrifyingly. I called him frantically. My fingers fumbled with the keypad, my breath catching in my throat, a desperate need for answers overriding everything else. No answer. Then I called Scott, his best friend. Scott's voice was calm, almost unnervingly, so as if discussing the weather. He was taking Mark away. He said, helping him process the news, get his head straight away from everything, a tranquil place where he could find peace. Don't contact him for now, Elena, Scott advised, his voice devoid of empathy, chillingly detached. He needs space. He'll be back when he's ready. And then a click. They had blocked my number. Both of them. I stood there, the phone heavy in my hand, utterly bewildered, a terrifying suspicion beginning to claw at my mind, cold and sharp as an icicle. It was all a lie. A cruel, calculated, monstrous lie. That night, sleep was an impossibility. My thoughts spun a chaotic tangle of grief, confusion, and a burgeoning sense of dread that turned my stomach. The silence in the apartment screamed at me, amplifying every doubt, every unsettling memory. And then, like a distant, unsettling echo that grew louder and louder, the X post from midnight on Reddit resurfaced in my mind, no longer dismissed as clickbait, but as a chilling premonition. The anonymous man, the fake illness, the convenient disappearance. No, it couldn't be. It couldn't. My mind fought against the thought desperately, but the similarities were chilling, too precise, too horrifying to ignore. The same age, the same long-term relationship, the same calculated cruelty, the same sudden vanishing act. I opened the midnight on Reddit post again, scrolling through the comments, my heart pounding in my chest, a desperate, frantic rhythm. And there, it was a new comment from the anonymous poster, a chillingly brief update. It worked. A cold dread settled in my stomach, spreading through my veins like poison. The circumstances were too similar. The age, the relationship, the timing, the cruel, calculated deception. The idea was absurd, monstrous, yet it clung to me like a shroud. I couldn't believe it, not truly, not yet, but the seed of doubt had been planted, and it had grown into a towering, terrifying tree. I tried calling again, a desperate, futile attempt, but he had truly vanished, swallowed by the digital ether, a ghost of the man I thought I knew. I spent the entire night pacing my mind, a whirlwind of increasingly terrifying possibilities, the pieces of the puzzle falling into place with a sickening finality. For a month after that public humiliation, I was a ghost haunting my own life, barely existing. Every scent of popcorn, every glimpse of a couple holding hands, every romantic comedy playing on a TV screen was a fresh stab wound, a cruel reminder of what I had lost and how I had been betrayed. My world, once vibrant and hopeful, had been reduced to ashes, a barren wasteland of broken dreams. I barely ate, barely slept. The energy that had fueled my 2 jobs, that had sustained me through years of sacrifice, simply evaporated, leaving me utterly hollow. I was ready to give up, to simply lie down and let the world pass me by. The despair was a suffocating blanket, heavy and all-encompassing. Then an envelope arrived. His wedding invitation, his and Tiffany's. My hands shook as I picked it up, the elegant script a cruel mockery of love and commitment. A bitter, humorless laugh escaped my lips, a dry, rasping sound. I didn't even open it, tossing it into the trash with a force that surprised me. It felt like a final pathetic act of self-preservation, a desperate attempt to sever the last tie. But moments later, a text from Lena, an image of the wedding details. It was happening in a week at our friend's restaurant, a place I considered sacred, a place where we'd shared so many happy memories. A deliberate taunt, a final twist of the knife, a calculated provocation to ensure I knew to ensure I felt the full weight of their despicable triumph. Lena, bless her loyal heart, was furious on my behalf, her anger a comforting mirror to my own simmering rage. Elena, I can refuse their booking. I can shut them down. They don't deserve to have their wedding here. She offered, her voice thick with righteous anger, ready to do anything to protect me. But a spark, cold and precise, ignited within me, cutting through the haze of despair. No. The despair began to lift, replaced by a searing, icy clarity, a focus I hadn't felt in weeks. No, Lena, I said, my voice surprisingly steady, a quiet power in my tone. Don't. Let them have their wedding. Let them think they've won. A chilling smile touched my lips, a genuine, if dark expression. Because now, I want revenge, and I'm going to make it absolutely perfect. The ex post and your bank statements aren't enough, Elena. Lena cautioned, her voice filled with concern, pulling me back from the brink of pure emotion. You need undeniable proof, solid, irrefutable evidence that will tear them apart completely. She was right, and in that moment, a new purpose crystallized within me, sharper and more defined than any dream I had ever held for Mark. The $100,000 I had saved for Mark's supposed treatment, the money I had nearly killed myself working for, became my arsenal. It was a significant sum, my entire life savings, but now it had a new, powerful, utterly necessary purpose. I emptied the account without a second thought. I hired a private investigator, a tenacious woman named Sarah, who listened to my story with a quiet, knowing gaze, her eyes promising justice. What Sarah unearthed over the next few weeks was a cesspool of lies and deceit that went far deeper than I could have ever imagined. Mark had stood there bold as brass and claimed Tiffany was pregnant, that he was doing the right thing, the honorable man taking responsibility. But Sarah's investigation revealed a different story, a truly sordid tale that made my stomach churn. Tiffany, it turned out, was no innocent victim caught in a romantic entanglement. She was a serial scammer, a professional con artist preying on men for financial gain, a master manipulator with a long history of defrauding them and then disappearing when the money dried up. She had a string of aliases, a trail of broken hearts and empty bank accounts stretching across multiple states. She had found Mark, a successful man with a new high-paying job, swollen with his own self-importance, and saw her chance for a big score. The pregnancy was a complete fabrication, a desperate attempt to legitimize a child that wasn't his. A child? She likely didn't even carry a child. He was utterly unaware of, blindly accepting her lie in his self-righteous delusion. The pieces of the puzzle clicked into place, forming a horrifying picture of calculated manipulation, a tangled web of lies spun by two equally despicable, morally bankrupt people. My anger solidified into a chilling resolve, a cold, unwavering determination. I would act on their wedding day, and I would make them pay for every tear, every sacrifice, every moment of my wasted life, for every single lie. The wedding reception was in full swing, a symphony of forced smiles, clinking glasses, and saccharine congratulations that grated on my nerves. Mark looked smug, puffing out his chest, the picture of a man who had everything, who had overcome adversity, who was now living his best life. Tiffany, radiant in her white gown, exuded an air of false innocence, basking in the glow of her supposed triumph. Lena, my unwavering ally, my co-conspirator, my dearest friend, positioned herself expertly. Feigning casual conversation near the projector screen that was meant to display a slideshow of their love story. And the air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume and the cloying sweetness of the tiered wedding cake. Then a subtle nod from Lena, barely perceptible, and the screens flickered to life. Not a cheesy montage of their fabricated romance. Instead, a searing indictment flashed across the large screens, illuminated for all to see. The first images were screenshots of the anonymous Midnight on Reddit X post, the very one I had dismissed as clickbait, the one that had slowly unraveled my world. Then, The damning comments, the cruel advice, and most damning of all, the "it worked" comment from the anonymous poster, undeniable evidence of his cold, calculated cruelty. The audience, a mix of curious guests and their own bewildered families, began to murmur their whispered conversations, dying down as the images shifted. Then, the detailed financial records flashed on screen. Every single penny I had poured into his life for 10 years, meticulously documented bank transfers, tuition receipts, utility bills, rent payments, a mountain of irrefutable evidence of my financial support. A collective gasp swept through the room, followed by an increasingly loud buzz of disbelief. Mark and Tiffany, moments before basking in their supposed glory, froze, their faces draining of all color, their forced smiles melting into expressions of horror and disbelief, their eyes glued to the devastating display. Lena's voice, clear and unwavering, amplified by the restaurant's sound system, boomed through the speakers, narrating the chilling tale of their deception. She laid bare the depths of his betrayal, the calculated lies, the fabricated illness, the emotional abuse, her voice echoing with a quiet power, and then the ultimate revelation, the shocking, undeniable medical report confirming his infertility, the secret I had carried agonizing over how to tell him now broadcast for all to hear. The irony was brutal, exquisite. It wasn't just a diagnosis, it was the shattering of his carefully constructed male pride, his very sense of self. Just as Lena finished, her voice resonating with righteous indignation, the main doors of the reception hall burst open. The people, lest Tiffany had swindled a furious, vengeful mob she had left in her wake, stormed in, their faces contorted with rage, their voices a cacophony of accusations. They were armed with their own proof, police reports, bank statements, angry shouts of thief and con artist, and "where's my money?" Chaos erupted. The meticulously planned wedding, the epitome of their carefully constructed lies, dissolved into a maelstrom of shouting accusations and utter pandemonium. The bride and groom, trapped in the suffocating web of their own lies, began to argue, their voices shrill, their accusations flying back and forth, turning on each other as their world collapsed around them. Tiffany shrieked about Mark's infertility, exposing her own cruel disdain for his manhood, for his inability to give her a legitimate child. Mark retorted, revealing her endless financial deceptions and the fabricated pregnancy, spitting venom at her for ruining his life. Then, united only by sheer desperate panic, they bolted, scrambling through the screaming crowd, fleeing their own disastrous wedding. Their grand facade shattered into a million pieces, leaving behind a scene of utter devastation. With the overwhelming evidence I had gathered, with Lena's unwavering testimony and the sudden dramatic appearance of Tiffany's victims, I wasted no time. Just 2 weeks ago, I filed a lawsuit suing Mark for fraud, for emotional distress, for every single penny he had taken from me during our relationship, for the decade of my life he had stolen. The court battle was swift, decisive, and overwhelmingly in my favor. I won. I recovered every cent of the hard-earned money I had sacrificed for a decade. Mark was publicly investigated, his lucrative job rescinded, his professional reputation in tatters, his carefully built career, the very thing he had discarded me for, destroyed. He and Tiffany, wherever they are hiding, are no longer my concern. The sweet taste of justice, a feeling more profound and satisfying than any love, any fleeting happiness he could have offered, fills me with an unparalleled sense of peace. My heart, once a shattered mess, is slowly, painstakingly mending, piecing itself back together with a newfound strength, a strength I never knew I possessed. I'm still healing, of course. Some days the scent of popcorn still makes me queasy, but for the first time in a long time, I feel truly free, truly myself. I'm starting to remember who Elena is, separate from Mark, separate from the lies. And that, my dear friends, is why I share my story here on Midnight on Reddit, because sometimes the most profound stories of resilience begin with the most painful endings. If you've ever felt betrayed, if you've ever had your heart broken and found the strength to pick up the pieces, I want to hear from you. What helped you heal? What lessons did you learn from your own journey through heartbreak and resilience? Share your wisdom in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming journeys through life's rich tapestry here on Midnight on Reddit.